Hello, I'm Michael Cantrell, and you are listening to the Prison Officer Podcast, a place to have a conversation about the forgotten cops that work in this country's jails, prisons, and correctional centers. A place for me to try to make sense of a career spent working inside the fence with some of the greatest people that nobody sees or recognizes for the important job they do to keep this world safe. If you love this podcast, hit the follow button, or better yet, share with your family, friends, or coworkers. Hello, and welcome back to the Prison Officer Podcast. My name's Mike Cantrell, and today I've got a friend who we've worked together for years. We worked together as captains for many years with the Bureau of Prisons, and he's someone I've always respected for the way he takes physical fitness and, mindset and everything like that. He's always been very prepared with that type of stuff, and we're going to talk to him today about some of that, but we're also going to talk about his story and how he got to where he retired from. So welcome, Glen MacDonald. I'm glad to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. And thank you.
I had you on here on the captain's table not too long ago.
Which was, that was great. That was a really good idea. I really like that.
Yeah, we need to do another one of those. Get you and Gary and Dennis back together, and I thought we had a really good conversation. But today I'm going to focus on you. So start from the beginning and kind of tell me where you grew up and, what you did growing up, what kind of family life and stuff you had.
All right, Glen MacDonald. I was born and raised in Connecticut, which is a very small state in the Northeast, if people don't know where it is. Just below Massachusetts and in between Rhode Island and New York. So it's a very small town. I don't even know where I lived in, it's called Manchester, Connecticut. So it was like in between Hartford and a few other more rural type areas, more farmland type areas. And the funny thing is, a couple weeks ago, I was actually back there. We had my uncle passed away. My father, who's a little bit older now, he needed some help to get around. I went back with him, and I was just like, man, what the hell? Like, I can't believe this place has not changed one bit. And I haven't been back there in like 20 something years, and I was just like, I can't believe it. I mean, it looks exactly the same.
How big a town is it? How many people?
So, probably no more than 10,000, somewhere around there. I'm just guessing, but it's not that many people. Yeah. Right. So, I really good, very good upbringing, close knit family. From what I remember, I was always over at my aunt and uncle's. My father had 7 brothers and 2 sisters, so it was very, a huge family. We were always doing something. My dad was like a big fisherman. Always went fishing quite a bit when I was younger. Played high school. I played football. I tried wrestling. I wasn't very good at that. I was a lot better at football, I thought anyways.
Yeah. Right.
Tried my best with that. Went through high school and just a average kid, not average. I should say, I really enjoyed the military type history stuff. So I was like back then, people didn't know what geeks were, but I was kind of geeking out on the military history stuff. And back then it was okay to run around with a plastic M16 playing war and stuff like that. And people wouldn't call the police on you or anything like that. And, we'd do all kinds of fun stuff on the weekends.
You're about my age, so we were playing Rambo. We were playing Commando. That's when all the good war movies came out.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Did you have a history of military service in your family?
Actually, from what I remember, I don't know if my grandfather, my dad's dad was in the military. I'm not even sure. I just had a cousin that was in the military. That was it. I just kind of gravitated towards that and was very.
You knew where you were going after high school then.
Yeah. I pretty much had the plan was I was definitely going to go into the military. I didn't know what branch, and then I was kind of like, I think my cousin went into the Army, and then I was like reading books about, like the Army, the Marine Corps, very very few books back then about certain things. And I remember reading one book. It was like called, I want to say it was called The Diary of Guadalcanal. It was about the Marines landing Guadalcanal and the jungle fighting. And I was like, oh man, that's great. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Living in a jungle and fighting. It's like, what the hell am I thinking about? And then, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of strange. Like I definitely was not the smartest kid. I wasn't very good at, math and history and studying and all this. And I was more like, hey, let's go outside and, play football or do some kind of sports or do something outside, and more of like a hands-on type of guy, So that whole academic thing was not a big deal for me. So I really didn't. Back then, I should have studied more, probably. When I took the ASVAB I remember I went into the Air Force because I think I was telling my mom how I wanted to join the military. She's like, well, go to the Air Force. I'm like, Air Force? I'm like, all right. So, you got to listen to your parents. So I go talk to the guy, and I think I took a pre-ASVAB type test. I can't remember what it was back then.
Right.
And I probably like just totally probably got like a 10% pass or something. I don't know. He just basically like kind of laughed me out of the office. And I remember then I went to the Army, and I like saw the Army guy, and I was like, yeah, he's like kind of like all out of shape and just kind of like nasty looking. And I'm like, nah, I think I'll pass on that. And then I went over to the Navy. Same with the Navy guy, kind of like nonchalant. I think, back then you could smoke in the office. I think he's like just sitting back, smoking, drinking coffee. And I'm just like, nah. And then I went over, I think I came back a few days later. And of course, back then I'm like riding my bike to the recruiter, stuff like that. And I went in the Marine Corps, and this guy was short, like barrel chested. He was a gunnery sergeant. His name was Gunnery Sergeant Hando. I was like, man, that is like the coolest freaking name. Like that's like he's got to be like a commando, right? His name is Hando. And I was like,
right,
yeah, he's definitely a special guy or something. We kind of hit it off pretty good, and I don't know if he fudged my scores or what he did, but I passed the ASVAB somehow.
Yep.
I passed just enough. I get past the ASVAB, and back then you still are, but you're just a number. So it was like, hey, I got a great opportunity for you. Oh, I'm going to be I'm going to be like an aircraft mechanic, something that's going to help me out later on. In my head, I was like, oh, I want to be infantry. That's it, just infantry. Just give me a rifle and I'll run around and shoot stuff. But he's like, sure. I got a great opportunity. You're going to go open contract. Oh, what's that? I was like, well, when you get in and you get through boot camp, they're going to pick you up as what they need. And most likely it's going to be infantry. And I'm like, sold. It's just like, across my head, it should have said sucker. So I signed my life away. And I get my report date to boot camp for June 26th, like 6 days after I graduate high school. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait. And it's funny, my friend John, we both played football together, and I actually did a podcast with him too. We actually went in under the what they call the buddy program. So you go in you sign up a friend together. You both go in at the same time. So you kind of go through boot camp together. Depending on your MOS, you might go through your MOS school together, stuff like that. So me and John are like, oh, hell yeah. And, people giving us parties before we left and, good times. So we leave for boot camp, go to Paris Island. I want to say it was like definitely within the first week, I want to say 3 to 5 days, we do our initial PFT where they rate you on your pull-ups, sit-ups, and a 3-mile run. I was definitely no PT stud or anything like that where I can knock out 20 pull-ups and 80 sit-ups and a 3-mile run. I barely I got just the minimum probably on everything. So I passed it. and lo and behold, John fails. Right.
Oh.
So, and here I am in Paris Island, and I'm like, oh, now my high school buddy, he's getting kicked out, or he's going. Well, what they did, they recycled him to a different battalion. So I think he got pushed back like 2 weeks or something like. So I'm going through boot camp, and I was like, man, I really like this. This is my thing. I really like it. Getting yelled at, discipline, marching, running around with, doing all these combat drills and things like that. And I was like, oh, I'm in my place. I'm definitely in my place. I was 19 at the time, and skinny, kind of, I guess, in kind of good shape. But I still struggled. I definitely struggled in boot camp. I mean, it's definitely something. I look back, I'm like, man, maybe I should have ran more. Maybe I should have done more push-ups or tried to find a pull-up bar before I went in. So, but I made it. I made it through. Definitely different coming from Connecticut to a big giant pool of people from all over the place, which was kind of I don't want to say a struggle. It was kind of just different, because I wasn't exposed to too many people back then. Right. It was a very small area where I lived. We traveled a little bit when I was a kid, but nothing like what you ran into. Like, I was in boot camp with guys from like New York City. Yeah. I was like, wow, this is like a whole different type of person, I remember one time, like, I don't know if you've ever really interviewed two other Marines or anything, but they used to have in boot camp, they'd have these, some of the recruits were like enforcers for the drill instructors. So if somebody would get out of line, all of a sudden they'd take that one Marine, they go put him in the bathroom, and all of a sudden the enforcer would go in there. Either you wouldn't see that recruit again, or he'd come out with a couple stitches in his face.
New attitude.
Oh yeah, I mean back then it happened. It just happened. Sure, it's just the way. That's just the way it was.
You could still put hands on people back then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I saw a few times. We had this one guy, Sergeant Askew. He's one of our drill instructors, and he beat the living shit out of people. Yeah. You'd be standing there in formation or standing inside the squad bay, at position of attention in your underwear, because, you're doing all these crazy inspections and you're like, you want me to stand in my underwear? Like, what the hell's happening? And he's over there beating some guy's ass. It's like, wow, what the hell is? So
what MOS did they give you?
So I end up getting through, like the second or third day before graduation, they sit everybody down in the classroom and they start announcing what your MOS is. And it's funny, it's like the left side, they're like, McDonald flipping eggs. I'm like, flipping eggs? I'm just like, I have no idea what he's even talking about. So he's like, it seemed like they like cut the class in half. It's like, this side of the class is all motor T. This side of the class is all cooks. And I'm just like sitting there like, flipping eggs. And, you can't talk. You can't ask questions. So, and usually in that third phase, just before graduation, they kind of treat you a little bit better. They're not yelling and screaming at you. And I think one of the guys that was in my same MOS, he's like, Private Johnson's request permission to speak, sir. Speak. He's like, what's flipping eggs? You're a nasty cook. You're a freaking nasty cook. That's what you are. That's all you're going to be. And the guys that got picked for cooks were like, cooks? Like, what? We didn't want to do that. So we graduate, go home for a couple of days, go back to then we go, end up going to our MOS school, which was in Camp Johnson, which is a little camp outside of Camp Lejeune. They have like Camp Geiger, Camp Johnson, and they're just little MOS schools. Camp Geiger was all infantry type stuff. We went directly. I'll take that back. My job was even funnier. I think it's hilarious. My job was at basic baker. I was a baker. So I was like, all right. Okay. I'm going to be baking cookies and making biscuits for everybody. Like, all right, so this is so we show up and all motivated. We're young Marines and going through this school. Like, what the hell? Like, what? I don't want to do this shit.
Wow.
And this guy Mike from he was actually from Coventry, Connecticut, which is just like a hole in the wall place.
Yeah.
Real small town. And he ended up being a basic baker, right? He's like, I'm not doing this crap. He's like, I came in, I want to be infantry, I want to go to the recon, I want to do this and this and this. Sure enough, he's like, oh, I hurt my back at PT today. He was gone. Like,
yeah,
that dude like faked that injury. He's gone. They separated him from the Marine Corps. That was it. He's gone.
Yeah.
And so things like that you could probably get away with back then. If they didn't want you, if you didn't want to be there, why the hell you want to be there? Just get rid of it.
And what year was this?
This is so still 88.
Yeah.
1988.
Yeah, we hadn't really geared up. The military in the early 80s, hell, they were getting rid of people. So yeah, it wasn't as hard.
I get through that school and I get assigned to 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, which is just down the street at Camp Lejeune. And they're like, "Hey, go home on leave. You got 4 days of leave." I'm like, okay, and some other sergeant was checking in at the same time. He's like, "Where are you from?" I said, "Connecticut, Sergeant." He's like, "I'm from New York. You want to ride?" I was like, "Okay." So I like bummed a ride from this guy I didn't even freaking know.
Yeah.
We get up there, and I think I got on the bus. I think I took a bus from there to Connecticut. I go home for vacation for Christmas leave, I think it was, and come back and like boom, get deployed and go to cold weather training for. I want to say it was like 4 months, 3 to 4 months. We went to California, coldest place in the world, Wisconsin, and then to Norway for about a month.
Wow.
Did that, and then came back, got deployed to Okinawa. And my job, man, I was like, oh, okay, I got to wear this funny white uniform, and my ranks still got to be perfect. My boots got to be polished, all this stuff, and they end up putting me in this job called field mess. When the infantry units go out to the field, I go and I'll cook them what they used to call hot wets. So it was like hot soup, coffee, and one other thing I can't remember. And that was like my job.
Yeah.
I became like the guy that, hey, Echo Company's going on the field. You're going. I was like, okay. So, I'd always have my stuff clean. And yeah, it was a good time. I mean, I really liked that part as far as like being kind of like the responsibility was put on me as I think I was a Lance Corporal E3 when I got assigned the job. And there was a corporal that did it with me. But man, the corporal just sat back and just chilled. I did everything. It was great. So
how'd you go from cook in the Marines to Bureau of Prisons?
So I get out. Then I went to. So I got deployed to Desert Storm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, went through Desert Storm. We cooked there for about 2 weeks, and then they pushed us. Our first sergeant loved us because our first sergeant was like kind of like a hefty guy. He's a Vietnam vet, real great guy. First Sergeant Veal, I still remember his name, and he'd always come. He'd be like, "Hey," because I'd have to always go to the company office to get like the mail for everybody and stuff like that. So, he'd be like, "Hey, MacDonald, go make me some cinnamon rolls." All right, First Sergeant. So I run back out of the chow hall and I tell whoever's in charge of the bakery, "Hey, First Sergeant wants some cinnamon rolls," and we knock him out a bunch of pastries and stuff. He loved us. we get over to the Gulf and he's like, "Hey, I need you guys to come up front with us to do patrols and stuff." We're like, "Patrols? What do you mean? Like, we're gonna go up front with you guys?" "Oh yeah, come on, let's go." So we did that, and we got trained. We got augmented to an anti-tank company with this reserve unit, and we got to like blow up a bunch of tanks, all kinds of cool shit. It was the funniest thing. It was like we'd run into these grunts from our from our unit from 2-2. And one time I ran into this guy. He was a scout sniper. And Mike, we're like freaking miles away from everybody. Like we're looking around, we're like, shit, I think we're really too far ahead. We're just sitting there in a security position, and this other Humvee pulls up. He goes, MacDonald, what the hell are you doing up here? I was like, I'm attached to this tow company. He's like, aren't you a cook? I said, yeah. You know how far ahead of you, everybody else you are? I was like, no.
Oh, wow.
He's like, you guys better like stay right here or move back a little bit because you guys are like ahead of everybody.
Oh,
it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then we kind of got that reputation in our unit, like, hey, don't mess with those guys. They're pretty good dudes. So,
killer cooks.
Oh yeah. Well, we called ourselves combat cooks. So.
Combat cooks. There you go.
So I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps, and a couple things happened in the Marine Corps. Like I was when I was in Okinawa, I was viciously attacked by another Marine, and he tried to kill me, tried to cut my throat. And I fought him off, and I ended up getting stabbed in the chest pretty bad. I got a pretty good wound right here, where my pectoral muscle meets everywhere right here, and it just kind of like ruined a lot of things for me because I wanted to re-enlist. I couldn't pass a PT test anymore. I had trouble shooting. Because it really affected me pretty bad. It was really hard to work out after that. It still, to this day, it still hurts a little bit here and there. A lot of scar tissue built up in there, things like that. So when I got out, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I was scared, man. I was like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And that was only, not to say, Desert Storm was like fighting in Afghanistan or Iraq, but, it was our little war, It was like, hey, we saw combat. We blew some tanks up with some people in it. We shot at people and stuff like that, Right. So, that plays a game with you. So I get out. I was married at the time. My daughter was already, what was my daughter? My daughter was probably going on pretty close to a year, maybe like 8 months, somewhere around there. I was like, all right, so I'm going to try and join the Army. That didn't work.
Right.
Tried to do that, and then ended up moving back to Connecticut because we really didn't have anywhere to go. I started working at a restaurant. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. I just couldn't, it was hard to adjust back to society. Early 90s is like 92. Yeah, it was September of 92 when I got out. Really hard to get back into society, I felt. I ended up joining the Marine Corps Reserves in Massachusetts, which was a blessing. I'm still active in the Marine Corps as a reservist now. And by now I was a corporal. I get up, I report to my reserve unit, and just so happens I know the Master Gunnery Sergeant from when I was in the Marine Corps, an active Marine Corps. He's like, hey, Mac, you got it. You're running the whole thing. I was like, okay. So I just took charge, and he, did his thing. I did my thing, and we had a real good team up there. Things really went well, and I really loved doing that. Still had a hard time with like the PT stuff, and it was tough. So then I'm like, all right, now I have to find a full-time job. I can't work in restaurants. I already realized that. I think I was working at a tire store, like changing tires and stuff. So I was like, whatever money I could make, I was trying to make. So
whatever came along.
And I was like unloading, I was unloading bananas off of a tractor trailer too, by hand.
Yeah.
53-foot trailer by hand. You're unloading it at like 2 a.m. I'm just like, man, what the hell am I doing?
Right.
It was tough work. So, like working 3 jobs, kid at home, a very unhappy wife. Just, it was tough. So I end up, all right, so either I'm going to try to become a cop or something like that. So I applied for the state police, didn't work out. Applied for one of the towns, didn't work out. Even back then they were like, hey, we want people with an education. I'm like, well, hey, I'm a veteran, and, didn't really matter. So,
right.
actually I went to school, started going to school, realized I couldn't do that either. Just, I don't know, man, just kind of one of those things. It's just like hard for me to accept or adjust back into society, I guess you could say.
Right.
I end up, I don't know if I met somebody. I think I met somebody that was working for Connecticut Department of Corrections. So I'm like looking it up, and prison was not on my mind at all. And I'm like, and I looked through the job openings they had, and they had a food service specialist type job. I was like, okay, well, I know how to cook in mass. I know how to do all that stuff. So I get an interview. I'm like, yes, I'm going to get this job. And I think back then it was like $30,000 a year or whatever. So I'm like, I'm going to be rich. So
right.
I remember going for the interview, and military, the Marine Corps teaches you, hey, you're gonna look professional all the time. You're gonna have a nice suit, had a tie on, and I walk in this place, and it is an absolute shithole. I want to say it was in Hartford, Connecticut, the county lockup type place. So I go in there, and the guy. I guess he was in charge of food service. Just me and him doing the interview.
Right.
He's asking me some food service questions. Now here's this guy. He's got like a white T-shirt with like spaghetti stains on it. I'm just like, man, this ain't gonna be good. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to. I'm waiting, and now I'm working. I'm working a security job for this grocery store called Stop and Shop, and I'm the whitest guy in the world, right, from Connecticut, and they put me in Hartford, Connecticut, which is like where like the Latin kings were born. I just didn't fit in. Let's just say that.
Sure.
So I didn't fit into that. I'm just like, man, I got to get a job. So I never hear anything from them. And then so my parents were friends with this one guy, Gary Holmes. Gary was a lieutenant at Danbury, Connecticut. So we go to this family party, and me and Gary are talking. He's like, where are you working? What are you doing? And he's like, why don't you apply for the Bureau of Prisons? I'm like, what the hell is that?
Right.
Oh, it's the federal prison system. He's like, I'm going to get you the application. I'm going to get you working. Okay.
Yeah.
So I apply, and back then it was typewriter or handwritten. I don't know. Was that before you?
No, and it was about 38 pages by the time you got done.
Oh yeah. I was like, and I'm typing like this, click, 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 click. So I apply, I get the interview, and now I got like a real nice suit on. I'm like, all right, I'm getting this job. I don't care. So I go in the interview, and back then the interview panel was like 7 people. I was like the psychologist, the AW, the department head, like HR person, captain, a couple other people were in there. And and you like you sit there and you're like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. Just so happens the food administrator was a Marine. The captain, I don't know, you've heard of Mike Kruzwicki?
Yeah. I don't think I've met him, but I know the name.
Kruzwicki's the captain. Just the whole group was like these stellar people in the bureau back then, right? So I was like, I'm like basically sitting at the position of attention in my suit.
Sure.
And the guy who was a Marine, he's like, Glenn, just relax. He's like, you don't have to sit at attention. Just relax. And they're asking me, the common questions. And I started in Danbury, October '93. I start there. Go through IF. I learned it was a pretty good job. Definitely something I didn't realize. A lot of people don't realize it's out there. And you can really make a good living, make a good career for yourself. So I started in Danbury. Great group of guys I was working with. We at the time there was a male facility, and most of the inmates were like all like mafia guys, like big time like white collar guys. Just nothing nothing
East Coast out there.
Yeah. Sure. Nothing too violent, nothing like that. It's a low security facility, so there's no big deal. And plus, I was a cook foreman, so all I really saw was the kitchen. And Gary was a lieutenant, so I already had a inside track of hey, if I need something, I can go to him, and kind of thing like that. And Gary was like an old head, probably started like back in the 70s, old head. So
yeah,
the guy you wouldn't screw with. He was always the day watch lieutenant or the shoe lieutenant. So
yeah,
good group of people that worked there back then. Met a lot of great people. Still friends with quite a few of them when we talk to each other. So we end up doing a mission change, probably 6 to 8 months. We go to female, right?
Oh Lord!
Says it all. Right there. So out of nowhere, man, it's like a mass exodus of like the senior staff. Like they're gone. I'm getting the hell out of here.
Uh-huh.
Like I have no idea. What's to come. So the females show up, and back then they didn't have uniforms. They show up in street clothes, right?
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was like, yeah, this is probably not good.
Yeah.
So, no uniforms. They got, they got their Jordache jeans back then, their Z Cavarici jeans, or whatever brand name jeans they had back then, skin tight, like the clothes they shouldn't be wearing, right? As inmates.
Yeah. So this is low level females.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, back then they only had, I don't know what it is even is now, but all they had was like a low and a high security female inmate. They didn't really even have like a status. It was just like you're just a female inmate. It was like, oh, what'd you do? Oh, I killed my 3 kids. Oh, you're still a low security inmate. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're not violent at all because you're a female. Okay. Yeah, good luck. So the females come, and it's just like, it's kind of like a shock. It's an absolute shock to everybody, I think. And all of a sudden, man, people are getting in trouble. I mean, people are having sex with inmates, all kinds of inappropriate stuff going on.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, man, you're like, kind of like, I would see it and I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? A couple of the people that I, back then I cared about, I was like, hey man, what are you doing? You can't be doing shit. You cannot say that stuff to the inmates. Of course we went through all this training where, hey, now you're working with female inmates. You can't, they didn't call it sexual harassment training back then. I don't know what they called it. Right. I think it was like dealing with female offenders or something like that. And
yeah.
It's a whole different world, man. A whole different world. People are getting in trouble all the time. So,
yeah.
So I'm kind of, I was kind of getting sick and tired of it. Oh, actually, here's a good story. So this guy, we're working in a temporary dining hall and kitchen because they're like redoing our main facility. So I was working at night and I leave and I'm like, damn, I forgot my jacket. I'm going to go back and grab my jacket. And so I go back to the dining hall and sure enough, man, I walk in. There's my fellow cook foreman. He's in between the legs of this one inmate. And I'm like, maybe I didn't see that right or something, And
right.
Like, hey, I forgot my jacket. I'm going to go grab my jacket. I'm kind of like walking like this. I'm like, got my blinders on. La, 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 la. I don't want to see nothing. La, la, la. So, and there's already people getting in trouble. People getting walked out. Rumors everywhere. Grab my jacket, I leave. And, I'm driving home. I'm like, nah, that wasn't right at all. Something was going on.
Can't let that slide.
No. So, like the next day I go, when I get back to work, I pulled that guy who's one of my supervisors. His name was Al, former Marine. I said, hey Al, I got to talk to you. He's like, what's up? He's like, hey, when I was working last night, this is what happened. He's like, well, that doesn't sound right. I said, no, what? And so Al, doing what he's supposed to do, he contacts SIS. So, and his name was, Holleran, Bernie Holleran. I don't know if you ever heard.
Oh yeah, no, I know Bernie. absolutely.
Yeah, another
good guy. I didn't know he was up there.
Yeah. So Holleran's the SIS lieutenant. So, I only had probably at the time, man. I only probably had just over a year, if that. So I was still a rookie, trying to feel my way through this craziness. And now we got female inmates. So Bernie comes up to me during mainline. He goes, "Hey, I got to talk to you." I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." The lieutenant's talking to you. You're in trouble. Back then, it was like that. Lieutenant or the captain talked to you. You're in trouble. So Bernie brings me in the back and he asked me what was going on, and I was like, "Well, this is what I saw, and that's all I saw." So then he brings me down to Cruz Wiki's office. I got to say the same story. He goes, "All right, MacDonald, sounds good. All right, so go back, whatever, go back to your boss." So probably a week later, I come to work, and everyone's out front. They're like, "Hey, man, did you hear what happened?" I was like, "What happened?" They walked him out. His name was Spade. Last name was Spade. They walked Spade out. I'm like, "They did? For what?" In my head, I'm like, "Ding, ding, 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 they got him." So,
right.
So I go walk into work, and Al's at the door. He's like, "Hey, come here." He's like, "I'm going to tell you exactly what happened." I was like, "What happened?" He's like, "I knew that son of a bitch was working last night. I stayed here. I walked out. I told him I was leaving." And he tricks him, so he walks out. And we used to have in the dining facility that they were rehabbing, they had a up top, up on the second floor. They had this little storage area called the chemical room, I think it was.
Yeah.
He's like, "Man, I knew exactly where he was going with that inmate." I was like, "What'd you do?" He's like, "I snuck back in. I went up to the chemical room and it's hiding behind a bunch of jugs. And I just waited." And sure enough, Spade went up there with that inmate. He was behind that inmate. Who's, what he was doing. I don't want to be too deep, but I was like, he's like, "Oh yeah, I stopped him right before it happened."
Oh.
So they caught him, and it was like Al was there, Cruz Wiki was there, and Holleran were all there at the same time because they knew something was going to go down.
Right.
They caught him red-handed, man. Red-handed.
Man.
And after that, man, I was like, "Man, I don't think I want to be here anymore."
Yeah. I've seen it 100 times. I still don't understand it.
It's rough. I mean, I'm going to tell you straight up. Some of the inmates that were there were very attractive. They're like Colombian inmates from California, really good looking ladies, right? But it's like, hey, they're an inmate.
They're an inmate.
We're here to supervise them, making sure they're not getting in trouble, doing what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
And, a lot of people took advantage of that.
There's good looking ladies downtown if you need something to do after work. Yeah, keep it out of work.
If you need something to go down the bar, the girl at the end of the bar where she passed out in a bowl of peanuts, tap her on the shoulder. I'm sure she'll bring you home.
Yeah. So how'd you go from cook to, what'd you go to next? Officer?
So then I went to, 95, I went and activated Florence, Colorado. Cause I was kind of like, all right, well, I know I need to get out of here. I don't want to say fast track, but I want to be promoted because I know I can do a little bit more than what I'm doing now. So I went out there for the chance of, doing another tour somewhere as a cook foreman, and then maybe go somewhere else as an assistant food service administrator.
ADX Florence. That was the Supermax. I was just saying for everybody that doesn't know, the Supermax was what the Bureau of Prisons built to replace Marion, Illinois. So, that was the newest and greatest. So that was a great activation for you to go be part of.
I really, really liked the food service, the whole thing that I was doing. I really enjoyed it. And I was surprised I actually liked it as much as I did. I get there and already I'm like, oh, this is great. It's just a big giant shoe.
Right.
It's a big giant shoe. So at the time, we didn't have any inmates. And then probably a few months later, we started getting trickled in some of the worst of the worst, right?
Sure.
And I didn't really see what was going on down ranges or anything like that. I was put on a detail to load the food carts, and then I got to drive this train around And it was like a little cart, right? I'm like driving there, just drive down the hallways, 75 or 100 something feet. There'd be another gate. Get to the gate.
Right.
Control would open the door. Don't ever push the button.
Right.
They see you. There's cameras like every couple feet. They know where you are.
Yeah.
So
every control center is an asshole about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they put you on door timeout, and then you'd be sitting there, and then you go like this, and they get on the speaker. Hey, don't do that. I was like, all right, I understand this game already.
Right.
Then my wife was pregnant at the time, and we ended up losing. I had two sons that were born, and they were both born very, very in bad condition, and they both passed away a couple of days after birth. So, and my wife was very distressed, very upset, and I don't know. My feelings are all, I don't know what that was from, but I was a mess. So the warden calls me. He goes, "Hey, what do you want to do?" He goes, "You want to transfer back? Because I already heard that you were thinking about going back to East Coast." I was like, "Let me talk to my wife." And we decided to go back to Connecticut because that's where her family is, my family, whatever. So,
right.
So I end up going back to Danbury as a cook foreman again, and I get there and I'm like, I was only in that. I think I was in that penitentiary probably 6 months. I think. Right. I'm like, this is just not the same. It's female inmates again, so I'm just like, this is bullshit. So, talked to the captain and said, "Hey, I want to go." And I talked to Al. I said, "Hey, I'm just not fitting in. I just want to go over to be an officer." So they let me ladder over to an officer, and it was nice because I went right to a GS7. Because of the pay scale and everything. So I went right to a 7.
Sure.
Yeah, so I kind of like Gary's still working there. Gary's, he's taking care of me, hooking me up with working shoe, working control, learning how to work, certain posts, things like that. Let me work in the armory once in a while.
Right.
By then I think I was already BPT qualified. I ended up getting become a firearms instructor. They sent me a firearms instructor. I'm on like disturbance control. I really take a big liking to all that stuff, like the immersive preparedness type stuff.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but I really liked it. So, I was working whatever. I was working a ton of overtime. Whatever. Call McDonald. He'll do it. And it's like, I'll just show up out of the blue. I'll be like, I'm here. I'll work 6 shifts in a row. I don't care. It's just like, it doesn't matter. And I was all gung ho about it, and just really loved it. I think it was like it did. It became became like an escape for me. Definitely. I got really wrapped up into it. So
keeping busy, so you didn't have to think about other stuff.
Yeah, a lot of things coming in my mind that weren't good. Still
right
stuff I didn't realize what was going on, like from the Marine Corps and stuff like that. And
I think a lot of us do that.
Yeah, I end up going to talk to the VA and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, you're a freaking mess," shit like that. So I go that route a little bit. Yeah, but I just kind of just like absorbed myself into the whole BOP thing. Just tried to get everything I could. Went to bus school. Went to that was a little bit later, but really got involved in the DCT stuff. Became a DCT instructor. Became a lead firearms instructor, became a lead DCT instructor. Really loved that shit. Loved it.
Yeah. I believe that's one of the times where we first met, whereas lead. Yeah.
And I think
all that's at Danbury?
Yeah.
So, or had you moved yet?
No, that was all in Danbury. So then, by then I was, I got my GS8. They made me acting lieutenant a bunch of times. It was like one of those like, hey, you can't go over 90 days, but day 89, you're going to go back on shift, and then tomorrow you're going to be activities again. I was like, awesome. No, I didn't care.
Yeah.
It's like
I was acting for 3 years. Yeah.
I wasn't getting paid for it. It didn't matter to me. I didn't care. Right?
Yeah.
And, and I kind of realized like, hey, not to sound like big headed, but I'm pretty good at this stuff as far as like,
right.
supervising staff and doing what you're supposed to do, everything that the lieutenants are supposed to do. So I end up going through doing a couple more schools, really loving that. Got put on a couple special, I don't know if you call them special, but like we got to when they closed down the DC jails. Mm-hmm. We had to go down there and pick up like a couple loads of female inmates. I got put on that detail, which was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, I had to drive all the way from Connecticut down to DC in this little Bluebird bus. It was like hell. I was like, man, this sucks. Got to do like a whole bunch of like soap flights and like all the special stuff. I don't know. I just always got picked for it. Yeah. And then so it was good. And I worked with, and by then the females were already there for a good few years, and they started like an influx of like hiring female staff.
Right.
And we had some really stellar freaking staff. I tell you, some of them females were just awesome. Really great lieutenants. It was a good time. And, I wasn't a lieutenant. I was still GS8 there. And I was like, well, and everyone's like, they're like, hey, Mac, you should be a captain. You should be an AW. And I'm just like, I should? Like, thinking in my head, like, I'm still this dumb freaking cook, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So doing the best I can. And I was like, all right. So, things weren't, for me, things weren't good at home. It was tough. It was tough, definitely tough. But then, on the career side, things were great.
Right.
But I was always at work. Always.
Right.
Always. Oh, you got overtime at the hospital? I'll take it.
Right.
Just like a overtime whore, man. I was terrible. And
so where'd you promote next?
So I ended up getting my GS9 to Devens, Mass. So I went up to Devens, Mass.
Okay.
Which was definitely different. Medical facility.
Yep.
It was probably open a good 4 or 5 years before I got there, maybe a little bit longer. So I was pretty established already of who was who, and the pecking order and everything like that. So I get up there, GS9, working my ass off. Had this idea that I could handle commuting back and forth to Connecticut. That didn't work out. Things, I already knew things were pretty bad already. So I ended up getting a divorce. Very, 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 very difficult divorce. A lot of bad things happened. Didn't see my kids very much. It was tough.
Right.
Very, very difficult times during my my times at Devens.
So you're throwing yourself into the job.
Oh yeah. Deep. Oh yeah. So I was just working, just kind of like barely even had a place to stay. I was like, at a point there, I was pretty much homeless. I was. It was funny. I was this guy, Pat Kelly was, he was at EDM back then, or EDS or something. And he worked out at the training center, which is right outside the camp, kind of an isolated area. He's like, hey man, he's like, I heard you're going through some shit. I said, oh yeah. He's like, well, you need a place to stay. I said, yeah. He's like, come see me after work. He gives me the key, an extra key to the training center. And kind of lived there for a couple months.
Right.
I did, man. I slept. I would go in there at night. I'd put the wrestling mats, those blue padded mats. I put take my sleeping bag, roll it out, fall asleep, wake up, take a shower, go to work.
Right.
I did that for a few months. A couple of guys I'd hot rack with them.
Right.
Hot rack. You'd go to work. I'd come in, go to sleep in the same bed. I did that too.
Sure.
Just trying to make ends meet. I was freaking broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Tough. And I end up being divorced, doing the best I could there. End up meeting a girl that worked there. End up getting married again. Second time. Hey, things will be great, right? Yeah.
Right.
Still, I mean, and I hate sounding like this, but I know the things I was going through still stuff from the military, and then things like through that divorce and things from work and things like that. That pressure was just like that. That pressure cooker was on high, definitely high.
Right.
Probably at that point, I think it was like 2 years. I did 2 years as a 9. Great place. So, I mean, the staff at Devon's, I love them. I mean,
right.
Definitely one of my top 4 places I've worked in. Everybody's really tight. We all took care of each other. If somebody screwed up, somebody would bang in. Guess what? We'd be waiting for you, either at the top of the door or at mainline. Be waiting.
Right.
For you. Oh, here he comes. You walk by, like, hey, hey, MFer, guess what? We ain't going home tonight. Just shit like that. People would go out to the cars. They wouldn't have wiper blades anymore. Stuff like that. Hey, back then, I mean, that's just what we did. Hey, you screw up, you're gonna pay for it. You don't do that. You don't do that to your fellow officers. We're
supposed to be a team.
My feet hurt. I'm not going to work. The sky's blue. I'm not going to work today. It's like, the sky's blue every day. So, real good place. Really enjoyed my time there. Met some really good dudes. Still in touch with a few of them. One of them actually came out to my retirement last year.
Yeah. So where'd you go next to get your 11?
So I get my 11. I go to Coleman, Florida. God. So I'm like, okay, Florida. Yeah, this is going to be great. Florida, right? So I get there. And have you ever worked down that way? Any of those areas?
Did program review down there a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting place.
We went to
one side runs like it's new, and one side runs like it's forgotten about.
Remember that we went down to that for that security assessment too.
Oh yeah,
With that team from Central Office. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get in there, bro. The first day, man, and all of a sudden I see these guys like they're all like dressed really nice. I'm like, okay, man, how you doing? I'm Glen MacDonald. Just got here. Yeah, we know who you are. Okay, I'm like, who are you? Oh, I'm a SAS tech. And they're like not in uniform, and I'm just like, okay, that's kind of different, right?
Yeah.
So these guys, they're talking to these inmates, and I'm kind of like watching, like, yeah, this something's not right here. They're like giving inmates stamps and shit like that.
Oh Lord, yep, seen that stuff.
And I'm like, this ain't right. So then this guy, I mean, I don't care about giving up names. This guy Carmona comes in. He's a SIS lieutenant. He's got a real nice suit on. He's like a big time player, right? So he's giving books. He's giving books of stamps away. Holy shit. So then it's me and Carmona in the office. It's probably like a week later now. So
yeah,
he's like, it's like, hey man. I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but y'all giving these inmates all these stamps and shit. What can you tell me what's up? He's like, don't worry about it. Give me some attitude, like, hey, don't question what's going on.
Right.
Like, do me a favor. When I'm here, don't do that in front of me. I don't want to see it because I know you're not supposed to. So then it's like, oh, McDonald's a scumbag.
Right.
I know what's right and I know what's wrong. So we had, I can't remember what the captain was, but we ended up getting this other captain who was involved in quite a few things at the other facility at the Medium that came out later on that, like, he correctional officer pregnant and all kinds of weird stuff, right? So they bring him over to the USP, right?
Right.
And back then, I mean, you really didn't know about it, but back then cell phones were a huge, huge issue. And that's like, that was like probably the beginning phases of like the cell phones being brought into institutions. Because, back then I don't even remember if we had walk through metal detectors. I don't even know if we had to walk through this. I don't think we got
not for staff. No, not for staff.
People were probably just putting bags, probably bringing bags of freaking burner phones in for these inmates. Right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if I had like some people probably think it's a bad reputation, but I always thought it was a good reputation of hey, McDonald's going to do the right thing, regardless if it's an inmate or a staff member. I mean, I've had my bumps and bruises with both, but people would kind of like, even the inmates would come up, hey, McDonald, did you hear about that last night? Like, nope. Come see me. Okay. Kind of, and they'd give me this information about inmates with cell phones. I'm like, what do you mean cell phones? I don't think I even had a cell phone back then. Who knows? Cell phones were like a big thing back then. It'd be kind of rich back then. You have a cell phone.
They were harder to hide back then too. They were bigger.
Big giant.
Yeah.
It started coming out, man. Like all this dope and all kinds of crazy. Like tons of it. We'd find weed all the time down there. A couple times I found some crack cocaine, some straight cocaine, black tar heroin.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got this reputation that nobody really, a lot of people respected me, but a lot of people didn't like me at all.
With that much stuff that you're finding, there's dirty staff.
Yeah,
that's a dirty staff problem. That's not a visiting room problem. That's not a basketball over the wire problem.
And that's already in my head. Hey, something's going on here. And I'm doing what you're supposed to do. I'm writing my memo. I send it to SIS. I send it to SIA. I send it to the captain. Doing everything you're supposed to do. And it's just building and building and building. My first day there, I get home and I tell my wife. She's like, "How was your first day?" I was like, "I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. This is fucking." And from there, it just got worse. So then, So I get to, and the captain, me and him didn't get along too good because I actually caught him red-handed giving an inmate like 2 cell phones. Like I'm walking down the lieutenant's corridor. I can hear talking in the captain's office and the door's cracked. So he's probably talking to another lieutenant or something, right? So real quick knock and I, open the door and here he is. Here's your 2 cell phones. Like, I'm just like, whoa. Yeah. I was like, whoa, what did I just see? And Mike, by this time, man, I'm walking around this prison like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, there's something really, really, really bad going on here.
Yeah, they got a culture down there that's messed up.
Oh, man, terrible. So
how long did you stay at Coleman?
Let me tell you a story about Coleman, though. So as you said, it was absolutely the dirtiest place as far as like contraband. So I don't know if you have ever heard of the Sharma case where the inmate
not right off, but
right. A lot of people don't know about that, and that's unfortunate because I think that would, if people knew about that case, it would, and actually looked at it and they'd actually talk about it in like training or something, it would really change people's mind about things. And it's unfortunate, but so I'm the imagine that I was the SR1 lieutenant for probably just about 2 years, right? Imagine that. You know what time I was on.
Yep.
So shoes absolute. It's an absolute mess. The shoe is an absolute mess. The officers down there didn't want to work. Sometimes they wouldn't let you in the door. I mean, it was just nuts, right?
Wow.
I'd go down there and do what you're supposed to do. You do your rounds, right? Some of the good officers that were there, they're like, "Hey, Mac, you gotta get down here, man. This place is this going on. I'm like, so I'm writing this down. At this point, I'm writing stuff down. It's like, all right, if something comes out, I don't want to be that guy. Like, well, McDonald did it, and then I'll just take my notebook out and say, hey, hold on a second. On this date here, whatever you want to call me, you can call me snitch, whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit, right? So,
CYA, cover your ass.
You damn right. I ain't going to jail for nobody. Hell,
right.
And then things were getting really, really weird. So I come in one night and I see a bunch of cars on the outside of the facility. I'm like, oh, this ain't good. Something bad happened. So I go in there, and I remember walking in the lieutenant's corridor, and we had a holding cell at the end of the hallway there. and there's a body bag in there, right? I'm just like on a stretcher. I'm like, oh shit. So actually before I even get in there, hey Mac, the control room officer, hey Mac, you hear what happened? I was like, no. So like, hey, freaking Animal killed Delano. I'm like, what? And Animal was this notorious inmate, and Delano was the shoe orderly. So I'm already walking down, and I'm like, this ain't good. Then I see the body bag. I'm like, gosh. So I get in there, and there's like FBI guys in there. There's SIA. I'm already, you see the SIA, you see the SIA, you see the SIS staff, and you're like, yeah, this is bullshit. Something ain't right here. Something is not right. So your spidey senses are already up. So I relieve the lieutenant. I take over, and boom, man, like out of the gate, people are like, hey, Mac, I'm like, listen, I don't want to listen. Stop. Don't tell me shit. I don't want to know a damn thing. Nothing.
All right.
And I think I got like mandated the next day. And the staff that worked that night before were working that day, and they're trying to tell me everything. And one of them was Aaron Sharma, who was later convicted of the part of the homicide. Okay, and this other guy was Mike Kennedy, who was also involved. It's funny how you remember these names, right? So,
yeah.
So sure enough, man, they're telling me these stories. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, hey, listen, if you're not going to put in a memo, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it. And you start getting that those spidey senses, that sixth sense that there's something going on. And why are people talking to you?
Right. You trying to spread the dirt, what they're trying to do.
Look around and you're like, man, they're not talking to anybody else. This ain't good. So I kind of like pushed back from that. Just did my shifts, try to stay quiet. Did the best I could. Even though I kept having all these little bombs dropped on me all the time. And I'm like, yeah, this ain't good. And I'm just like, man, at this point, I'm like freaking paranoid. I'm like writing everything down. I'm like, oh, this happened. I think I still have some of those notes too. And then out of the blue, this guy James Raby, he was an FBI agent attached to Coleman. I mean, what facility actually has a FBI agent attached that actually works there, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I didn't know who the hell he was. He goes, and he meets me in the parking lot after my shift. He goes, hey Glenn. Hey, what's up? He goes, hey, shows me his badge. I'm like, oh shit.
Right.
Hey, I'm James Raby. I'm an FBI agent here at Coleman. And I'm just like, where the hell did you come from? Where do you work at? And he goes, hey, I need to talk to you. Mike, it was rough. So I'm talking to him. He's writing things down. I was paranoid, but I know it was happening. I was being followed. I don't know if it was the feds following me or it was staff following me. I wasn't sure.
Right.
And I don't care. This shit happens. It does.
Sure.
It happens. So I'm kind of like, man, this ain't good. This ain't good. And by then, my wife at the time, she leaves the bureau and goes to North Carolina to try and help her father, who was pretty ill. And she starts to work for the U.S. Attorney's Office, right? And she'd call me on my shifts at night. She's like, hey, be careful. I'm like, I'm always careful. What do you mean? She's like, I can't tell you anything, but just be really careful. What the fuck are you talking about? And then you pick up your phone and go click, 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 click. Just weird shit like that. Maybe I was paranoid. I don't know. Maybe I should have took more medication. I'm not sure, but something weird. Some weird shit was going on. So they end up pulling me in again, and this guy, cannot remember his name. He was in the whole case with the homicide ends up going the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Okay.
This dude pulls me in with Raby. Raby's like, by now, actually, Raby pulled me over one night. I'm on my way to work. Raby pulls me over. He goes, hey. And by now, I'm just like, I'm talking shit to this guy. Like, hey, man, you fucking me like shit. What the fuck? And he pulls me over. He goes, hey, I got to talk to you. It's like, man, can't you fucking just like call me or something? Why the fuck you got to pull me over? What the fuck? Like, what's going on here, man? He's like, I just got to talk to you tomorrow. I said, all right, fine. What time? This in the middle of Florida in some freaking cow country. and you're already like, it's already like freaking 10:30 at night. You're like, why are you pulling me over? You're like scaring the shit out of me kind of thing. You're like, you're waiting for a UFO to come down and pick you up or some crap. So I go talk to him, and now this civil rights guy from the DOJ's there. If I could draw a picture of this guy, you remember the Heat Miser from that Christmas Carol movie, the Heat Miser?
Oh,
yeah. Red flaming hair.
Right.
That's this guy. He's like, Mr. MacDonald kind of thing, right? And it's like, this guy's, he's young too. He's a lot younger than me, and I'm just like, man, this guy's really creepy. I'm like, for one, I was like, let me ask you a question. I've been in this job for, by then it was maybe 12 years, somewhere around there. So it's not like I'm, brand new, not new to this stuff, what's going on. And I've seen some shit already. Right. So, let me ask you something. What do you want from me? Why are you talking to me? And it seems like you're only talking to me. Like, well, you're the only one who will talk to us. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, you are the only person that will tell us anything that goes inside that place. I'm like, well, you got a bigger problem than me in this case. So I don't know what you're going to do. But what do you want? So we can be done with this shit. Because you're like ruining my life at this point. And now, I'm never mind my career. My life is just upside down. My wife at the time is living in North Carolina. I'm by myself in Florida, working all these bullshit shifts. It's stressful, bro. It's stressful. Really, really tough.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people, something like that. A lot of people, I think it would have broke them. It really would have.
Yeah.
It was that.
Anytime you're under investigation, which has happened, I think all of us at some time, maybe not to that level, but anytime you're under investigation, that's just horrible stress.
Oh yeah.
That you don't need in a place that you're already stressed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It was eating me alive, man. Just eating me alive. And I ended up talking to this guy. We end up going to trial. We go to the grand jury first, and he's asking me these questions, and real quick though about animals. So when the DOJ guy and the FBI guy are first interviewing me, they're showing me these pictures, right? These handwritten or hand drawings. You're like, Glenn, do these look familiar? I was like, yeah, that looks familiar. Because Animal was a big time. He was a great artist, man. The dude, like Picasso, the guy. I mean, the detail in the faces and everything was like extremely incredible. How detailed he was.
Yeah.
He goes, hey, and Animal would ask me all the time, hey, can you do me a favor and be like real quiet? What's up? I was waiting for him to say, hey, can you bring me a pack of smokes or something like that?
Right.
Hey, can you bring me a picture of a fire truck? Yeah, I can do that. What are you going to do with it? He's like, I just want to draw it. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
What's wrong with giving an inmate a picture of a fire truck, right? So slip him the thing to, print off a picture of a fire truck or find a magazine, take a fire, give it to him.
Keep him busy.
Yeah, exactly. This guy lived up to his name too. Animal, man, what a problem. This dude was up.
Yeah.
Every time he was on a 3-man hold too. So anytime we'd take out, I'd go down there and escort him to wherever he's got to go, and he's always like pulling on me. I'm like, hey man, you better chill out, Animal. You're gonna get messed up. He goes,
right.
Oh, MacDonald, you ain't gonna do shit. he like tried to pull, and I was like, wham! I'd slam him against the, he's still cuffed, slam him against the wall. I said, keep fucking around and see what happens. I'm going to take that baton. Right. That baton's going to be across your head right there. He was on baton watch and everything. So
sure.
I think he was just doing that just to see how far I'd go.
So testing.
So we sit down with these two guys, and at this point, man, I'm like, should I get an attorney? Kind of thing. Like, should I get my own attorney? Because this doesn't even sound right anymore. So they should start showing me these drawings. They're like, hey, like, you recognize that picture? I said, yeah, I do. He's like, did you give him pictures to draw from? I said, yeah, of course. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We give books to inmates all, and they're like, no, you didn't do anything wrong. He said, but look at the drawing. And I just sit there and look, and I'm like, oh shit. He's like, yeah, that's you. That's somebody else, and that's somebody else. And like, but look at what you're doing. And I like one of the pictures was like, I was like standing on like a pile of like rubble, and I'm like holding a rifle or a flag or something weird like that, right?
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird, and it still like gives me chicken skin, my hair standing up on my arms.
Yeah.
About it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's kind of weird. I was like, hey, that guy idolized you. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh yeah, we interviewed him a few months ago. But the funny thing is he wanted to kill you. Remember all them times he would test you and pull away from you? I said, yeah. You're like, he was testing you to see how vulnerable you were, because he wanted to kill you to earn his bones by killing.
But they didn't tell you that a few months ago when they found it out.
Of course not.
No.
Why would you do that? So I'm like, okay, that's very weird, right? So then we end up going to trial. They're questioning me at the grand jury, and I had to like explain like how to make hooch. And I never made hooch, but I have a pretty good idea how they do it in prison, right?
Sure.
I kind of had to explain that to the grand jury and the judge, and they're like, that happens? I'm like, it happens all day long. Every single day. You can walk inside a facility right now and you can smell it. I can like a dog, I can actually track it down and find it by just smelling it. And they were just surprised at what really went on inside facilities. So then I become like the key witness for the Bureau of Prisons, which was not an honor. It was, you didn't get a badge. You didn't get a medal for it. You got a kick in the teeth. That was it. That was it.
Yeah.
It's part of our job to cooperate during investigations. And, it says it right there in our ethics. Mm-hmm. But man, it's a tough road to have to deal with.
Absolutely. And if you don't, you're putting other people's lives in danger, because whatever is going on is going to go on more. And what if Animal that day had decided to kill a staff member instead of an inmate, so whatever anybody thinks about doing that, which I've had to do the same thing in investigations, go tell the truth. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it, but it's something that we have to do. The prison has to be a safe place for staff to work, and dirty staff make prisons dangerous places.
Very.
So whether it's drugs or phones or whatever's stamps, I used to see that. I used to see staff members who would pay inmates in the mental health unit off with crackers to get them to be quiet through their shift. They give them packages of crackers so that, hey, don't do anything on my shift. Well, you're just passing the buck down the road instead of dealing with it, and you're making it a more dangerous place to work. So I agree with you, and I know what kind of a spot that puts you in.
And then, so then we end up going to trial, and a lot of people don't understand, like, if you've ever been through training, like the legal part of training or any type of like supervisory type training in the Bureau, they tell you, like, hey, if you ever go to court or anything like that, they're going to look at your training records. They're going to bring people up from your past that trained you. Mm. Guess what? Oh, you know what? I mean, since you were a trainer like I was a lot, the signature sheets at the bottom, guess what? They miraculously show up after years.
Sure.
Years of training.
Sure they do.
So we're at court, and they're showing me these. They actually had two guys. So I'm in the like kind of like the break room or wherever they had the witnesses. I was talking to these two guys. They're both Glencoe instructors from Fletsy. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And just small talking. Like, oh yeah, they're bringing us up for because we gave the initial use of force class to Sharma, to Aaron Sharma. I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, man, she went to like Fletsy like probably like 10, 12 years ago, probably, And now these guys are here testifying, yes, I swear and all this, and I did that class for 2 hours 12 years ago, and I gave it to her, kind of thing. It's like, if they want you, they're going to get you. And, they had the training records with their signature on it, everything. So it's like, hey, guess what, people? That does happen. It does. It does.
Oh, absolutely.
And now, now everything is computerized. So now it's even tracked even more, So end up going through that trial. Very overwhelming because I was kind of kept there for quite a while. I was there for almost the entire week.
Right.
They end up convicting her of being they basically made her like the mastermind of the homicide, and they used McCullough, John the Animal McCullough. That's his. If you've never if you want to read an interesting story, read that guy's bio. You can Google it too, John McCullough or John the Animal McCullough, and it'll tell you a pretty long story. Yeah. So, and some very interesting facts in there too. So, she ends up getting life in prison, right? Life, yeah.
Wow.
And at the time, her husband works there as he's an officer.
Oh,
kind of weird. This guy, his wife's going through trial for a homicide of an inmate, but this guy's still working.
Yeah.
It's like, probably not a good idea to do that. Right?
You wouldn't think so.
Right. And so, I think after that, so what happened was, like I was saying, my wife at the time was in North Carolina. I'm just like at my wit's end. I was applying when she initially went up to North Carolina. I was applying for unit secretaries to, captain jobs, whatever I could get.
Sure.
Anywhere in between, I was trying to get it. It just so happens none of them I qualified for. I'm like, here I am with 15 years of bureau experience, and you won't take me as a unit secretary in North Carolina. Like, I can probably run circles around you guys pretty easily. And at the time,
you're qualified if they want you. You're not qualified if they don't want you. Yep.
And
we've all seen that.
What a bunch of bullshit that was, I tell you.
Yeah.
And at the time, this guy Tracy Johns was the warden. That guy attempted to destroy my career, and he did a pretty good job at it. It definitely put me in a holding pattern for quite a while. Because when I was still there, I was still like all these things going on. I'm involved in this trial now. My name is like mud. The people that actually respect me and like me actually do, and the other people don't give a shit about me. And they're trying everything. I mean, the way I felt, they're trying everything they could to just ruin everything for me. And they did a pretty good job for a while. So that at the time, the guy, that SIA, I know he was kind of involved in some kind of backdoor shit that they were trying to get me on something. They're either trying to make something up or make something happen to where I would be involved. So all these weird things were happening. Because I was at Coleman for almost 5 years, so that's a long time. And I was at the USP the entire time, except for the last 6 months. I'll tell you about that. But all these weird things were happening. All these incidents on my shift were happening. And this one inmate comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, MacDonald," he's like, I want you to know we're making sure you're going to be all right, but you got to be careful." It's like, you hear an inmate say that shit. You're like, what the fuck is going on? To this day, that was an FBI agent inside that prison. Definitely. And probably, I want to say it was a couple weeks later, that inmate was gone. Right? It was like, yeah. The SIA brings me over, go over there, and he's in the admin building, which is already creepy enough. So I get over there, and he's questioning me about some use of force incident. I'm like, no, it didn't happen like that. Blah, 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 blah. He goes, well, just want to let you know you're under investigation for excessive use of force. Okay. I said, bring it. Bring it.
Right.
Because I know, at that time, Mike, I didn't care. I was like, you're full of shit. You're a fucking liar. F you. I didn't care. What are you going to do?
Right.
Hire me? Send me to Coleman? Okay. What else could go wrong, right? So then I kind of set this dude up because I know he's full of shit. So write a memo about the incident. I go over there after my shift. I slide it under the door. Oh, actually, before I knew he wasn't there. I knew he wasn't there that day. I go over there. I said, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, do you mind time stamping this?" She's like, "Sure, no problem." Boop boop. Time stamps it. So I have this timestamp saying when I turned in this memo. So got it. Put it in my pocket. Come back later, and I gave her a copy. I come back later. I slip another one. I slip another one under the door. About 2 weeks later, "Hey, MacDonald, I got to talk to you." All right. Go over. By now, I'm walking around with a handy dandy little briefcase type of thing with all my documents in it. That's how bad it got.
All right.
I had 6-part folders with this incident happened this way. This is, everything. Timelines, everything.
Wow, crazy.
Oh, bro, it was rough. So, I get over there and he's questioning me. He goes, "Well, you never reported the incident." I said, Hold on a second. I said, "This? Are you talking about this?" He's like, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "No." I said, See this timestamp on here? When I turned it in to your office?" And he was like, "God damn it, MacDonald. You fucking set me up." I said, "You're a piece of shit. That's it. You're a piece of shit." I said, "So what else you got? What else you got for me? Because you're not going to get me. You're not going to get me." At the same time, I'm trying to get out of there. I'm trying everything. I'm at ART at training, and there's 300, 400 people at every ART for Coleman. It's just a huge place. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of people there.
Right.
I'm still. I got fired from DCT. Imagine that. So I was still a firearms instructor, still a DCT instructor, things like that. But it wasn't coming around like it used to, where I could train all the time.
Right.
I'm talking to this guy, Captain Smith from the medium. He just got there, so he's doing a class. New guy probably doesn't know who's who. Probably heard my name, but he gets done with his class, and I go outside with him. I said, "Hey, Cap," so you gotta do me a favor, man. You got many? He's like, "Yeah." He goes, I said, "Hey, you gotta save my life." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You gotta get me the hell out of that USP." I was like, I'll tell you about it later, but I can't tell you about it now. Man, you gotta save me, man. Just get me the hell out of there. I need a break.
Right.
So he ended up getting me over to the medium. And it's weird how Coleman's big, but it's still small.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck in that USP world, you're just stuck.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I get over to the medium, some great group of lieutenants, and they're like, "Hell no, I'm not going to that USP. Hell no." I get over there. I'm just like, I get along with everybody, man. Just some great dudes. There's some good dudes in the lieutenant's office at Coleman too. Some really bad dudes too. So I get over there. I finally I'm on vacation in North Carolina, and the warden called me. She's like, I got two choices for you. You can be a correctional officer, a butler, or you can be a cook foreman. I'm like, that's pretty easy. I'll be a cook foreman. F custody.
Sure.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I know with cook foreman, I'll be skating. I'll have a good time. 15 years in the Bureau, no problem. So I get that job. I immediately transfer as quick as possible.
Right.
So I get up there and nobody knows who I am. I like just show up out of the blue. And
right.
Guess who the warden is? Tracy Johns. Right.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. So I show up, I'm 15 years. I was probably a lieutenant, probably 7 years, somewhere around there. GS-11 lieutenant, coming from a really, really violent USP.
Sure.
I got a couple nicks and bruises on me, but I'm going to go. I'm like, all right, hit the reset button. I'm going to do good. I'm going to get back on track. Right. So they assigned me to the low at Butner. I'm in there my first day. Had my nice light blue shirt on, my blue pants. The old nasty uniforms. Had my tie on. Oh, I was all AJ squared away, right? So
yeah.
So I'm standing main line and talking to a few people. And Mike, nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
They didn't know I was lieutenant. And they were like, "Oh, when did you start?" I started not too long ago. I wasn't really like in the mood to really tell anybody not why I'm there, but that I've been around forever. And
right.
And all of a sudden, I see Tracy Johns standing mainline, and in the front, in the front of the dining hall, it's just a bunch of big windows, so you could see clearly out to the compound. He's standing out there. He looks at me. He shakes his head. You could see him just mouthing the words.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah,
like, I got you, buddy. I got you. Don't you worry. So I'm seasoned guy. The administration, the food service administrator, we all got along really great. Always hit me up with questions about security and this and that. So things were going really well. I see they post because at the time I want to say they're opening the new medium at Butner, and I think for some odd reason they needed two other captains, right? So I put in my captain packet, right? And
right.
IBQ, and everyone's like, "Who's this MacDonald guy? Who's this MacDonald guy?" Nobody knows who the hell. All lieutenants, like one lieutenant figured out
right.
who it was. He goes, how long you been in the Bureau? I said, 16 years now. Where were you before this? Coleman. What'd you do? I was a lieutenant. Where? I said, USP 1. Like, now I figured you out. Oh, you've been hiding. You've been hiding really good. I was like, oh, it's what I got to do, man. I got to protect myself.
Right.
Like, he's like,
right.
Don't worry. I already heard. I heard what happened down there. I was like, okay. So what do you got? What do you got to say to me now? Oh, I ain't got nothing to say. He's like, you're a good dude, man. I ain't got nothing bad to say. And he named off a couple names I knew. I was like, yeah, good dude. So I BQ. And that same lieutenant comes up to me probably like a month later. He's like, hey, man, you BQ'd for that job, right? I was like, I know. He's like, Captain Smith wants to talk to you. Okay. I go up see the captain. He said, MacDonald, you're a cook foreman. How'd you BQ for a captain? I was like, Captain, how long you been in the Bureau? He's like, I don't know, 10 years or, something like that. I was like, oh, that's nice. I was like, where'd you work before here? He's like, oh, I've been here at Butner the whole time. I said, oh, okay, I got 3 other joints under my belt already. And he's like,
right.
He's like, what? I was like, yeah, I used to be a lieutenant at Coleman and this and that. Coleman, or a lieutenant here, and I worked here and worked there. He's like, oh man, he's like, that's some good credentials, but I don't know if you're going to get this job. Going from a cook foreman to a captain, I doubt it. And like a couple, once the, how the promotion thing goes, and like that,
sure.
That lieutenant comes up to me. He's like, hey man, he's like, John said you ain't got shit coming. I tried to go back to a lieutenant. I just had nothing coming to me, which was, understandable. That's fine. It didn't really.
So where'd you get your captain at?
Didn't really bother me. So then I was still at Butner. This guy, Hank Simmons, was my administrator. And I said, "Hey, Hank, I got to get back in the game, man. I just can't do this anymore." He goes, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to go somewhere. I said, "I want to go to the worst place in the Bureau." I was like, what is the worst place in the Bureau? He's like, "As far as what?" I said, "Violence." He's like, "Probably Pollock." He's like, "Oh, they just had a homicide, a couple weeks ago or whatever." I'm like, "I want to go there as lieutenant." He's like, "All right, let me make some calls." And I apply and I get picked up for Pollock, which I absolutely love. Pollock was, man, it was awesome. Just awesome.
Right.
From like day one, like I get down there. My wife ended up getting picked up as a unit secretary, maybe. So she left the U.S. Attorney's office, got back in the Bureau, and we both went down to first day there. It's like 3 body alarms, spraying inmates with gas. I was like, I love it. I'm back in the game.
Right.
Sweating my ass off. It's like freaking boiling ass hot.
Oh yeah.
Having a good time. Meet a bunch of great guys and gals. Things really clicked down there, man. Really clicked. And Donnie Cartret shows up, who is one of my mentors from back in the day. So it's like the quarter was up, and if you don't know anything about USP Pollock, you can look it up, and you find a lot of bad things happen there. A lot of violence towards staff and inmates. I end up getting put at the medium as like evening watch ops or something like that. And Donnie just got there, and Donnie was an officer at Danbury, I think just before I started. And he was a real hard charging guy. And I'm over there at the meeting. He goes, the door's open in the captain's office, and the other captain's in there. And he goes, "Hey, MacDonald, come here." He's like, he's very forceful, right? But he's doing it in a kind of a way to where you think he's like super aggressive, or he's like a dick to you, but he's not. He's like testing you, kind of.
Right.
Everything is always a selection to him, like let me see what you got, kind of thing, right? So, so I go in there. I was like, yes, Captain. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing over here at the medium?" Like, "This is my assignment." He's like, "As of tomorrow, you're going over to USP. I need my compound back." I look at the other captain. He goes, and him and John Gradiska were the captains, and John and him worked at Beaumont together, so they had a lot of time together too. He goes, "You heard what the captain says. Tomorrow, you're working at the USP." Okay. I was like, and I looked at Cartret. I said, "So what do you mean take your compound back?" He goes, "You know exactly what I freaking mean. Like, just make it fucking happen." I was like, 10-4. So next day I go back over to USP, and I seen him before the shift started, and I was on evening watch, and my activities was Lee Fitzgerald, which is an awesome dude. Unfortunately, he left the Bureau. And so I told him, "Hey, man, Cartret wants the compound back. Guess what? We're going to take it back." And I mean, some crazy crap was going on. I said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to slow down mainline. We're going to control it, everything." Because, I mean, bro, like they'd let these inmates out, the place would just go mad. It was like a war zone all the time. Yeah. And people like, "Oh, you're full of shit." Like, no. We'd open the doors, the place would go crazy.
Yeah.
Like the first,
slow things down.
Yeah. Like the first move, and me not knowing Cartret was still there. Like the first night, and we let this one unit out. This dude comes out, F you, and all this, talking all this crazy trash to us. And it was like a dog pile. I mean, there's probably like 6 of us. This guy's like running at us, and like fist pumping. It's like, "All right, come on, let's go." Wham! We just smash him. And we're like on him.
Right.
Put him in cuffs, drag him off. And we're like, shut the compound down. And all the inmates are like, oh shit, like, uh-oh, it's on now. So I remember we get that dude down into, and it was hot, man. It's like, you know, Louisiana is like, it's just another level of hot, the heat, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, you're just covered in dirt because of the compound, like all the grass is dead. It's like dirt everywhere. And we're like wrestling this dude down. He's got like, by now he's like got basically mud all over him because he's sweating so much. We get him down the shoe and we're like, he's like, why'd you guys, now he's crying, right? He's like, why'd you guys treat me so bad? Why'd you treat me so bad? It's like, you come out talking shit to us, guess what we're going to do? We're going to take care of you.
Right.
I said, matter of fact, spread the word because it's going to be a new world in here. Yeah, man, we kind of like changed that culture of how it was running and slowing things down, making sure it was always secured. And Cartret's watching the whole time. He's like, probably up front and ass off watching on the cameras. And so I end up, dude, I got 1,000 stories about Pollock. Worked a lot with this.
So when did the fitness? Because that's definitely something I want to get into with you. When did I know you do the rucks? I know you're big into health and fitness, and that's kind of what you're doing in retirement. Mm-hmm. When did that come into play? Was that when you were having some of the problems and you needed that to,
funny thing,
bring about? Or
when I was in Danbury, one of the things the VA did was this pilot program of it was like therapy through fitness or something like that, like making us do all these, like, I remember this one time we were like riding this bike, like riding as hard as,
right.
For the guy's like, all right, you're going to ride it as hard as you can for 2 minutes. I'm like, okay. Riding the bike. I'm like, all right. And then he'd ask you a bunch of questions. Okay. This is kind of
right.
So I was like, and then, and I was always kind of like into like working out, stuff like that. And then I just, honestly, man, I blew up like a freaking balloon. The stress, everything that I was going through, I blew up like, I was fat.
Right.
I was disgusting. I hated it. Hated myself. So I ended up, when I got to Pollock, I was really, really super heavy, really out of shape. But it was funny, like even when I was really out of shape, I'd work out all the time still, thinking I was doing really, really well.
Right.
But in my mind, I was still like big, giant fatty, right? Yeah. And even back then, before rucking was cool, I was rucking all the time. People would see me out on the trails in Devon's, Mass. I'd have a big pack on. I'd be snowshoeing around base and all kind of, like, people are like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm having fun, just, to me, it just feels good, just to get that energy out, breaking a sweat and doing something very, very difficult for me it felt great. It really did. Felt good.
Right.
It helped me.
And that's went from like a personal thing to, is it a competition now that you go to, or is it more of just a group activity? Because I asked you about the patches behind you
the
there.
Rucking patches? So if you see all these here, these are all the events I've done. Well, some of them I don't have all my patches up there. I probably got about another, probably 20 more somewhere, just stacked up in the corner somewhere. Kind of lost track. I've done over like 100 probably over 120 now. I can't really remember how many. I just don't even.
Well, tell us what a ruck is.
Right, so
is it just a group, or is there a competition to it? Is there levels, or I haven't been part of one, so.
Well, a ruck is actually just a backpack. It goes back to the Legionnaires of when they'd have to carry equipment, over many, many miles, carrying all that equipment to go to war and things like that. And I guess the military took that concept of rucking as, just carrying a bunch of weight. And then in the Marine Corps, the job I had in the Marine Corps, even as a cook, guess what? Well, we called it in the Marine Corps. Imagine that. We called it humping. We'd have to hump our gear.
Right.
So we'd go on these humps all the time with all this freaking equipment. It would break you off. It'd break you in half. You'd be like, damn, that's hurting. So I ended up, kind of like when I got out of the Marine Corps, be like, I remember how good that felt. That the pain, the enjoyment of it, and just being outside. I don't know. I bought a backpack or found a old military backpack or something, and start rucking. I just throw like a bunch of crap in there.
Right.
Start rucking around. Be like, oh, this still feels good. It hurts, but it still feels good. And then I just kind of kept with it. Yeah. And then when I was in Pollock, I met a couple guys. Well, I met this one dude, Rory Perry. He was an officer. And at the time I was like really big into helping veterans and part of this veterans group called Team Red, White, and Blue, which they help veterans through physical activity to help them get back into society, things like that. And I was like, man, this is like a no-brainer, right?
Sure.
So I met Rory and said, hey, man, and Rory's like he's a combat veteran from the Battle of Fallujah, which is like one of the worst battles the Marine Corps ever had in Iraq.
Absolutely.
So we talk all the time, and I really, man, I was like, I love that dude. Like, freaking love him. He's just an awesome dude. Had a lot of trouble, a lot of PTSD issues, things like that, and I do my best to help him out the best I could. Really struggled with a lot of things. So I said, hey, man, let's do something really hard. He's like, all right, let's do it. And Rory's jacked. He's like, he's a short guy, freaking jacked, right? I was never a short guy.
Right.
I was a PCT fatty, right? So, I was worried about pizza and stuff like that. And this guy was just like eating freaking cinder blocks. So we start rucking. I'm like, hey, man, let's, and at the time, I think I did like a Tough Mudder and like a Spartan race or something. I was like, wow, that was really hard. Right. That was so hard. It's like, no. Yeah. So I'd always look at what's the next hardest thing. And then I found this company called GoRuck. So it's a company built by this guy who was a Special Forces Army guy. And he'd make these backpacks, right? And then it went to a backpack challenge where you take that ruck and you put, depending on what your weight was, you put a certain amount of weight in there, and you'd show up in the cadre, which would be like him or a few other people. Because at the time it was so small. It was just a small group of people. Right. Underground type of thing. And they would show up, and all these guys were like special operations guys, like Navy SEALs, Special Forces, at the time, Marine Recon. And these guys would just put you through absolute freaking hell, and you'd have to wear the backpack.
Right.
Ding, ding, ding. This is like a winner for me. So we find an event in New Orleans, downtown New Orleans on, I want to say the day before Halloween. So basically, just like one of my anniversaries of like, I can't remember how many years I've been doing it now. For like 11 years probably. Right. Since then, I just like, I just love it, man. It's so painful. Yeah. I mean, I'm 53 now, and it really takes a toll on me now, big time. So I really stayed the best I could. I stayed in really tried to stay in the best shape I could, even aging as I was, still working full time. And I would always, I'd find an event, wherever, somewhere. And that, when I first started, it was pretty, they'd have, within a year, they'd have probably like 300-400 events throughout the country. I'd find the closest one to me. Yeah. And it was really big. It was pretty popular to go to New Orleans because everybody loves New Orleans when I was working at Pollock. Yeah. And they'd had events there all the time. So every event, I'd try to go. And I would go at the time.
Give you something outside of work to.
Oh yeah.
Give you something outside of work to look forward to and train for.
And that, and that's.
Yeah. I did the same thing for a long time with the heavy games and Scottish Highland games.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
So, and it was just something I could think about at work to get that off my mind. So that was working the same way for you.
And I see a lot of staff now. I mean, especially when I left, man, they were just like, they don't do anything. It's like,
right.
Oh, what'd you guys do last night? Oh, I played video games all night. What do you mean you played video games? Like you come in here and you're sitting in front of a computer all day, or dude, you got to get outside and do something, right? And then I got into CrossFit pretty big. When I was in Pollock, started doing that. I love that. I love doing that. Really, really hard stuff. And I was that guy like, hey, we're going to do this really hard workout, what they call a hero WOD, workout of the day. So it's designed to memorialize a fallen soldier or a Marine or anybody. So, and these,
a veteran,
if you've never done a hero WOD, they will kick your ass. All right? They're built to be very, very difficult. So I'd be that guy during the hero WOD that would wear a gas mask, something a little bit stupider, or a helmet, or, something like that.
Make it just a little tougher.
And people are like, man, you're freaking badass. And I'm like, I am. I'm like, I'm slow. I'm terrible. And I just kept doing, those hard things. And I really, really, really enjoyed them. Yeah. Sometimes, man, I look back at some of the events I've done, and they were absolutely the hardest things ever. Even harder than the Marine. Yeah. So, but it's just, to me, it's just an outlet, and a couple of places after Pollock, I went to Mississippi as a deputy captain. I continued it there, continued my fitness stuff there, still doing CrossFit, still doing GoRuck events. I gave up on that Spartan crap and the Tough Mudder, because who the hell wants to be electrocuted? I mean, if you're looking to do something, the hardest thing you will probably ever do for fitness is go do a GoRuck event. Go try one.
Okay.
And you will get checked quickly. I mean, I've been to events where people don't last 20 minutes and they have to quit.
Yeah.
They just either not.
And this has become something that's been since you've retired. I know you're into this strength and conditioning. You've started a podcast. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you ended up in Chicago, and that was we talked about that during the last one. But what are you doing now with retirement and strength and conditioning? And what can you tell the people out there? I mean, how important is it to have that physical outlet?
Well, for me, like when I still continue to do CrossFit and GoRuck events, a lot of training time on my own for some of these events, and then I was like, you know what, I need to do something with this the best I can, and going in and out of Chicago, I took the train in and out of work every day, so I listened to different podcasts. I listened to like Jocko, Clear to Hot podcast. I don't know if some of the other ones are around anymore. And that stuff just like resonated with me. It really motivated me to, one of Jocko's things is like, get after it. Like you need to get after it. Even as hard as our job is physically and mentally. I mean, you see it, Mike. I mean, you see people just falling apart, man. They're not saying I'm some fitness guru, but I mean, to not have that outlet of working out and pushing yourself past your limit. What's going to happen when Mike is getting stabbed or Mike's getting beat up or something bad's happening? What are you going to do? Are you going to just like cower in the corner or run the other way? Or are you going to do the best you can to get over there try to save Mike's life? Or what if you...
Sure.
I had an incident where we had to give a staff member CPR because he had a major heart attack inside the institution. People were just falling out because they couldn't handle like giving the guy CPR. And this is one of your fellows.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the first things you probably learn You see that on TV, and the doctors and nurses run in, they go pump, pump, pump. Yeah, giving somebody CPR and doing it for even 5 minutes, but sometimes as long as 20 or 30 is an it'll kick your butt. Yeah, absolutely. You got to be prepared for that stuff.
I remember running across a compound in Pollock. It's 1,000 degrees, running across an incident, and Pollock was pretty good. There's 2 rec yards between the lieutenant's office and the closest housing unit. Running across there and going as fast as you can, because you can hear a staff member kind of their voice is elevated inside a unit, or something bad's going on. You're running across there, your adrenaline's already pumping like crazy. You're like, what am I going to walk into? And you get in there and you're already whooped. Guess what? You're just another liability to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are definitely a liability. And if you're not ready for something like that, it's something that is really unfortunate, because people just don't, I think they take it for granted. Like, I'll be all right. No, you won't. And
yeah.
If they're not doing
it, sounds like it sounds like one of the things you've done. And I read an article not too long ago about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And you kind of like making yourself uncomfortable, so you're comfortable when it comes time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So riding back and forth from Chicago, listening to the podcast, I was like, you know what? You never hear anything about correctional staff. From what I remember before I retired, you were already retired. I don't know if we were talking like on email maybe, and you're like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, that's cool, And then I remember, I don't know if you sent it to me or I found it, and I listened to like your first or second one. I was like, man, that's a really freaking good idea. And you kind of talk about more like the policy of it, the training, do's and don'ts of that. And I try to, I think my podcast, I try to more talk about the stories and what people have gone through, and let them talk about it, because I know for myself, it's really helped me as far as like getting the things that, like that story about Coleman. I mean, it still affects me to this day. It does.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Absolutely.
People are like, shit, that doesn't bother you? Like, yeah, it does. Some bad things happen there. Bad things, you see some of your friends that got hurt through the years, or not just physically, but mentally. I mean, like I retired. What's today's 30? Hey, today's my 1-year anniversary. Imagine that. So today's my 1-year anniversary.
There you go. Congratulations.
And our chief psychologist from Chicago, great guy. He's a psychologist. The guy has a hard time just talking about what happened. Like I had lunch with him probably like 2 or 3 months ago now. And I'm like, dude, where have you been, man? Because me and him were really tight, and we really worked well together. He's like, I can't do it. I can't talk about it. I can't, I wasn't even bothering him about being on the podcast or anything like that. He's like, I can't deal with it. He's like, I can't adjust back to this life. And he's a chief psychologist. It's like, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're having trouble, what's wrong with us?
Yeah. So, oh, it changes you. It absolutely does. And sometimes there is no going back. We make the best out of it, but we leave prison a changed person. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna be the person you were when you first walked into it. So, well, thank you, Glenn. I appreciate you coming on here. Can you tell us where they can contact you or find your podcast?
Okay. So my podcast, you can look it up on either Facebook or Instagram. It's under Mainline Strength and Conditioning Podcast. And it's on also, I have a YouTube channel that has all my all my interviews right now. So go ahead and take a look at it. Let me know if you ever want to talk to me about on another podcast, or if any of the people you've interviewed. I know you've talked to quite a few people. I would love to, tell them how I feel about things. I just love, I don't know, man. It just feels good to talk about it. So
Yeah, and it's good for us, and I think it's good for the people that are listening because they get to understand, you're not the first person who's ever dealt with some of that stuff you did at Coleman. There's a lot of staff out there who've had to make those decisions. Yeah. So I think when we talk about this and when we bring it up on these podcasts, it makes it easier for everybody. So I thank you for that. I thank you for sharing your stories. And
real quick,
we'll talk at you soon. Oh, you got something? Go ahead.
So if anybody, if anyone who's a current employee, or even if you're retired, if you you can look me up, and if you're having trouble with your fitness and you want to get back in shape, or you want to get ready for SORT or DCT or anything like that, let me know, and we can talk offline, and I can build you a program for a very minimal fee, because I'm not looking to make any money. I'm just trying to help people of getting you back in shape. So I just love to know.
Oh, it's a great resource. I appreciate that.
Just let me know if you need anything. Mike,
that's
great.
Let me
know, man. Okay.
I appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Brother,
thank you,
Take
Glenn.
care.
If you enjoy these podcasts, the best way to support the Prisoner Officer Podcast is to share these episodes with your friends or family on social media. Let me invite you to visit www.theprisonofficer.com. If you haven't already, check out the Prison Officer Podcast on Facebook and click that little follow button. Or leave us a message, or better yet, leave us a review. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, Google, or Spotify, please click the subscribe button. Until next time, I'm Mike Cantrell. Watch your back, and please take care of each other out there behind those walls.